Give me the ball. I'll handle it. That's what the quarterback told his coach in the middle of a season that was falling apart. The score wasn't in their favor. The crowd was quiet. The team had already taken hit after hit that year. Most young quarterbacks would play it safe in that moment. He didn't. He wanted the pressure. Up to that point, nothing had gone right. The offense looked stuck. Drives were ending too fast. People were already talking about next season. But on that drive, something felt different. He stood in the pocket longer. He made the tough throw instead of the easy check down. He took a hit and got back up without saying a word. The sideline started to believe again. You could see it in their faces. That wasn't just another play. That was the moment the team stopped playing scared. From there, the tone changed. The locker room changed. And if you want to understand how this season turned from falling apart to fighting back, we need to break down what happened after that drive. Because that's when everything really shifted. Don't forget to subscribe to Vista RO for more powerful NBA stories. That one drive didn't fix the season overnight, but it forced a real decision inside the building. The coaches stopped protecting him and started trusting him. The play calls changed. Instead of short, safe throws, they opened the field. More deep routes, more motion, more chances to read the defense before the snap. That shift told everyone this wasn't temporary. This was the new direction. You could see the difference in how the offense lined up. The huddle was quicker. The communication was clear. That he wasn't just reacting anymore. He was controlling the pace. On third downs, he stayed patient. When pressure came, he stepped up instead of drifting backward. That kind of command spreads fast. Linemen block harder. Receivers finish routes stronger. Confidence builds in real time. And once the offense settled down, the rest of the team followed. The defense started playing with better field position. The special teams cleaned up small mistakes. The games became tighter, more competitive. It wasn't about blowing teams out, it was about playing 4 steady quarters. Now the question wasn't whether he could handle the moment, it was whether this steady rise could turn into real results on the scoreboard. The results started to show up quietly. Over the next stretch of games, the numbers told a clear story. Now, the offense stayed on the field longer. Third down conversions improved. Turnovers dropped. Instead of falling behind early, they were either tied or leading going into the fourth quarter. That changes how a team feels late in games. In one matchup, he led a long drive that chewed up the clock and ended with a clean touchdown pass in the corner of the end zone. In another, he kept his cool during a 2-minute drill and set up the game-winning field goal. These were not lucky plays. They were planned. Patient drives built on reading the defense and taking what was there. That's growth you can measure. Teammates started speaking differently about him after those games. They talked about trust, about knowing the ball would come out on time, about feeling prepared each week. When a locker room starts using those words, then it means the belief is real. And once belief becomes steady, the focus shifts from surviving the season to shaping the future. What made this stretch different wasn't just better execution on the field, it was how the staff adjusted around him. The head coach and offensive coordinator began building weekly plans that matched his strengths. More quick reads when defenses showed heavy pressure. More rollouts to give him clear throwing lanes. They studied what worked and leaned into it instead of forcing a system that didn't fit. Film sessions also changed tone. Instead of long talks about mistakes, the focus shifted to problem solving. Coaches pointed out defensive trends and asked him what he saw. That kind of involvement builds ownership. When a quarterback feels hurt in the game plan, he plays faster on Sunday. The line protected with more purpose because the calls made sense. The receivers ran routes with better timing because they knew when the ball was coming. This kind of alignment between player and staff is not common during a rough season. It usually takes years to build. But here, it developed in weeks. And when that connection locked in, the team stopped looking like it was patching holes. It started looking like it was laying a foundation for something steady and long-term. While this progress was happening, the rest of the division was dealing with its own issues. One rival struggled to protect its quarterback. Another team kept changing its starting lineup. Close games were slipping away from them because they couldn't finish. The gap between teams wasn't as wide as the standings first made it look. Now, that matters because division races are often decided by small swings. One steady offense can shift everything. When you have a quarterback who is growing each week and a staff that trusts him, you gain stability. And stability is rare in this league. Other teams were trying to figure out who they are. This team had started to figure that part out. Now the path doesn't look impossible anymore. Instead of chasing a top seed, the focus becomes simple: win within the division. Beat the teams in front of you. Take care of home games. If that happens, the picture changes fast. And with momentum building inside the locker room, the next step becomes clear. Strengthen the roster to match the progress already made. The front office understood the timing. They saw a young quarterback settling in and a coaching staff finally on the same page. Now, instead of making risky moves, they focused on smart planning. Cap space was managed carefully. Contracts were structured to keep flexibility. Draft boards were studied with a clear goal in mind. Add pieces that support the progress, not distract from it. Scouts began looking closely at positions that could protect this momentum. Interior line depth, another reliable pass catcher, more speed on defense. Not flashy names, but players who fill real needs. When a team knows its direction, every roster move becomes more precise. There's no panic, there's no chasing headlines. It's about building layers around what is already working. That approach sends a message inside the building. It tells the locker room that leadership believes in the core. It shows patience and confidence at the same time. And then when players see that kind of steady planning, it strengthens the culture even more. Now, it's no longer about just finishing strong. It's about preparing to take the next real step forward. There is one more factor that makes this situation serious: draft position. Because of the early losses, this team is not picking in the middle of the board. They are sitting in a strong spot. That gives them options. They don't need to gamble. They don't need to reach. They can wait and take the best player who fits their needs. This is where smart teams separate themselves. If you already have stability at quarterback, you can use that high pick to protect him or give him another weapon. Maybe it's a lineman who can start right away. Maybe it's a receiver who can stretch the field. Maybe it's a defender who changes games on third down. The key point is simple. They are drafting from strength, not fear. When you mix late-season growth with a premium draft asset, timelines move faster. Rebuilds don't drag on for years. One strong offseason can turn close losses into wins. And if they hit on that pick, the conversation next year won't be about improvement. It will be about control. That leads to the final question. How close are they to actually flipping the division? Here's the honest truth. This team is closer than people think. They already handled the hardest part, which is finding stability at quarterback during a tough season. They adjusted the system, cleaned up mistakes, and stayed competitive when it would have been easy to fold. That kind of response tells you the core is strong. If the offseason moves are smart and the young players continue to grow, the jump can happen fast. In this league, the difference between 6 wins and 10 wins is usually a few plays each week. A stronger line to give the quarterback half a second more. A defender who wins one extra battle on third down. Small upgrades, big results. So this isn't about hype or big talk. It's about timing, growth, and smart planning coming together at once. The early losses may have shaped this team more than the wins ever could. And if that foundation holds, next season won't be about proving people wrong. It will be about showing everyone that the rise already started. Now comes the real test. Expectations. It's one thing to fight back when no one believes in you. It's another thing to carry the weight when people start paying attention. If this team enters next season with real buzz, they will see different defenses, different game plans, and more pressure in big moments. That's where leadership matters most. The quarterback will need to take another step, not just in stats, but in command. Reading complex coverages faster, adjusting at the line without hesitation, keeping the locker room steady during tough stretches. Growth in this league is not automatic. It has to be earned week by week, and that's what makes this next phase important. If they handle that jump, the conversation shifts again. It won't be about progress. It will be about position. And that leads straight into the next layer. How this team stacks up when the spotlight gets brighter. When the games start to matter late in the season, details decide everything. Red zone plays, clock management, discipline under pressure. These are the moments that separate good teams from serious contenders. Last year, they learned how to stay calm. Now they have to prove they can finish. That means turning tight fourth quarters into wins, protecting the football in must-have drives, winning key matchups against division rivals when the standings are on the line. These are not flashy goals, but they are the ones that build playoff teams. The margin is thin, and every mistake gets magnified. If they can show growth in those moments, the division race won't feel like a dream. It will feel like a real target. And once that becomes clear, the focus moves to something even bigger: sustainability. Success for one season is nice. Staying competitive year after year is what changes a franchise. That requires depth. Injuries happen, slumps happen. Now, the strong teams survive because the next player is ready. That's where drafting well and developing talent truly pay off. The staff will need to keep building leaders across the roster, not just at quarterback. Veterans setting standards, young players pushing for roles, a culture where effort doesn't drop when adversity hits. That kind of structure keeps the team steady even when things don't go perfectly. If that foundation grows stronger, the team won't just compete for one run, they'll build a window. And that brings us to the final piece of this entire picture. This whole journey started with doubt and quiet adjustments. It moved through growth, smart planning, and steady leadership. Now it stands at the edge of opportunity. The division is not locked. The path is not blocked. The pieces are lining up. Yeah, what happens next depends on execution. If the quarterback continues rising, if the front office hits on key moves, and if the locker room keeps its edge, this won't just be a comeback story. It will be a takeover story. And when next season kicks off, people won't be asking whether this team is rebuilding. They'll be asking how they let it happen right in front of them. Blessings to all my Red Zone Report subscribers family. Your support means everything. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and I catch you in the next one.